Make better life choices. They're haunted for sure. Oh my god, he's gonna piss on her. I was traumatized. Can you please just think a kind thought a day in your life? I feel like finding a dead body is like top 5 worst things to happen on a date. Hey Amelia, happy freaking 2025. Listen, before I get rocking and rolling, I need to speak on my freaking Goodreads reading challenge, okay? Have I ever once in my entire life met my reading goal? No, never. I don't even usually get very close. Am I ever gonna change it from 50 books a year? No. What is wrong with me? I think I enjoy failure a little bit. Anyway, once again, I am in a reading slump, and once again, the only book that has been able to pull me out of it is a Colleen Hoover book. Also, Colleen Hoover quit writing. I have really deep, complicated feelings about that, so we'll talk about it a little bit later. This is Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. I'm gonna start off with a big old content warning because the first 5 pages there's like depictions of drug overdose and like child neglect. The main character is overall deeply traumatized. The rest of the book's pretty normal, but the first couple pages are pretty rough. And I hate to say it, I was laughing. I was chuckling at this because these are very serious topics, very serious things. But it was just so unserious the way it was written. And she was like, yeah, my mom overdosed. And I was laughing. Anyway, the book opens with the main character, whose name is Bea. She's 19. She just found her mom overdosed and dead. Basically, Bea had an extremely rough childhood. Oh my god. Like, this is crazy. And I chuckled at this. I think it was 5 years ago, right around when I turned 14, when I caught her shooting up meth for the first time. That's page 2. Bea was deeply neglected. She once left me alone for so long, I ate old banana peels and eggshells from the garbage. I even tried eating a few bites of stuffing from the inside of the couch, but it was too hard to swallow. I forgot how dark the beginning of this book was, because it's so light and fluffy for the rest of it. So, Bea's mom is dead. Rest in peace. I'm so sorry. Because her mom was already a little bit behind on rent, Bea is now being evicted. Bea has a full-ride scholarship for volleyball. She's really good at volleyball. It's like her whole thing. So she just has to make it 2 more months until school starts, and she asked the landlord, she's like, please, I just need 2 more months. And the landlord is like, tough shit. Your mom was already like 5 months behind on rent, so I'm sorry. Bea calls her dad, and her dad is very barely in her life. He lives in Texas, and he has this whole new life, and like Bea's mom and dad were not together, never were together, so Bea does not really have a relationship with her dad. So she calls her dad, and she's like, can I stay with you for a few weeks? He's like, of course. The hot gossip is Bea's dad actually really cares about her, and so for Bea's entire childhood, she's been like, my dad doesn't give a fuck, he's just like off living his own life, he doesn't love me, he doesn't care about me, he never like writes me or visits me. Turns out her dad actually does care about her a lot, and he's been sending her like money for tuition and a cell phone and like letters, but Bea's mom has been taking them and stealing them. She calls him and she's basically like, can I stay with you for a couple weeks? He's like, sure, from when to when? And she's like, I'm just gonna get a one-way ticket and we'll figure out once we get there. And he's like, slay. Bea buys a one-way ticket to Texas. So her dad picks her up. She's like, wow, my dad is so gorgeous and hot. His black hair is sprinkled with salty strands and his face is fuller. He's always been handsome, but most little girls think their father is handsome. Now that I'm an adult, I can see that he's actually handsome. Is that true? Do most little girls are like, my dad's attractive? I don't really think I've ever thought that. Immediately after her dad picks her up, Bea starts lying. She says that she checked 3 bags when really she has her backpack full of stuff and that is all she owns. And she says that her mom dropped her off at the airport and handled all the like bag check things, when famously her mom is actually dead and did not in fact drop her off at the airport. They start driving to her dad's house. They have to take a ferry to get there, which like now that I'm thinking about it and like visualizing a map of the United States, Texas has a coastline. However, I don't conceptualize Texas as a place with a coast. To me, it seems very inland. So when they're like, yeah, we're on this ferry to get to the beach, I was like, damn, Texas has beaches? Are they nice beaches? I don't know. I've never been to Texas. Anyway, her dad is like really rich. He drives a Jaguar. On the ferry, Bea gets out and walks around a little bit. And on the outside deck, there's like a bag. Okay. It's like a bag of bread, like a loaf of bread in a little plastic, you know how you get bread from the grocery store. It's like in a plastic bag, but it's like a loaf of bread. And it's on the floor of the ferry, but it's still in the packaging. So she like picks it up and eats it because she's hungry because she hasn't eaten in like literally more than 1 full day. So she's eating the bread from the ground. And this random man is taking photos of her. The camera is pointed right at me. At least it seems that way. I glance behind me, but there's nothing there. So I'm not sure what else he'd be taking a picture of. But she's like freaked out. So she goes to the bathroom on the ferry. When she is like trying to get out of the bathroom and go back to the car, the same random random guy is blocking her path and he like slips her a 20. Bea has had a deeply troubling young adulthood. When this random man slips her a 20 as she's exiting the bathroom, she thinks he is trying to pay her for sex. So she grabs the memory card out of his camera and throws the camera at him, but he doesn't catch it, so it just like falls on the ground and breaks. Right then, when the camera's like breaking on the ground, random guy's friend, who's named Marco, pulls up and he's like, yo, what happened to your camera? The random guy lies and he's like, yeah, like I dropped it. And then the random guy goes, I wasn't propositioning you. I saw you take the bread and I thought you could use some help. So he was actually not a shitty person. But like, explain why you were taking pictures of her though, because that's shitty person behavior. Bea goes back to the car. Her dad has a girlfriend who's named Alana. Alana has a daughter named Sarah. Bea's dad is like, Sarah is so excited to meet. Like, they're all really excited to have you over. Turns out Sarah's boyfriend is Marco, the friend of the random guy with the camera. Tough day to be Bea. They get to the beach house. Bea meets Sarah, who's like her stepsister. Bea is low-key super hateful to Sarah for no reason. Sarah is being very kind and compassionate. She like voluntarily moved out of the nice room in the house into the smaller room so that Bea could have the nicer room. And Bea is like, she's probably a shitty person. She calls her like a locker room girl, which is like the kind of people who'd make fun of you in the locker room. Like, yes, Sarah has some very interesting takes. However, I think it's just because she's like very sheltered and privileged, which does not like excuse your shit ass takes, but like she's not malicious and she's not mean. She's actually very sweet. She comes on a little strong. She's very excited. But like, can you please just think a kind thought a day in your life? I'm begging. I am begging. Since Bea lost all her luggage, Sarah is like, you can borrow anything from my closet, like take literally anything. And then Sarah makes a very not chill comment about Bea's body. Do you diet? She asks, looking me up and down, or have you always been this skinny? We will learn as this book progresses that Sarah has a tenuous relationship to her own body. It gets weird. I don't know that this is what we needed in our lovely Colleen Hoover book, but it exists, so I'm going to talk about it. But yeah, that's not chill. Because also Bea's like super skinny because she is not eating for days at a time because she cannot afford to. And then Sarah is like, God, I wish I was skinny like you. And Bea's like, what? After this whole interaction, Sarah is like, do you have a boyfriend? And Bea's like, no. And she's like, okay, good. There's a guy I think you'll like, Samson. He lives next door. From Bea's window, you can see Samson's house. And he is hooking up with the girl with the windows open, so they are spying. Unfortunately, I do believe this is peeping tomfoolery that you're engaging in right now, and I think that's a crime. Turns out Samson, the neighbor boy, is the douchey camera guy from the ferry. That evening, they all have dinner together. Sarah, Alana, Bea, her dad, and Marco, and Samson. They all have dinner together, and Alana is like, we can take you shopping, Bea, because they lost your luggage, and Bea's like, yeah, like we can just take her on down to Walmart and I can just pick up some things. Alana's like, no, like we can get you something that's like actually nice. Hey, don't hate on Walmart clothes, okay? Are they high quality? No, but they got some good stuff. So Sarah and Marco and Bea and Samson go into Houston to go shopping. Samson and Bea go to the top deck of the ferry, and Bea is like, just to be clear, I'm not interested in you in any way, shape, or form. Please never proposition me again. And Samson is like, that's fine. I'm not interested in you at all. We can just be friends. Bea is like, people like you aren't friends with people like me. That is so 2012 coded. When was this written? 2020? Because that is 2012 Tumblr core, unfortunately. But this was written in 2020. Wow. So Bea is like, I'm poor, you're rich, you're hot, I'm not, you won't understand me. Samson is like all dark and mysterious and brooding about that. Gosh, I hope he's not harboring a secret. So later that day, perhaps another day, or maybe the same day, Sarah and Bea are hanging out in Sarah's room and they're just like gabbing like girls. There is so much uncomfortable conversation about Sarah's weight and how she's so jealous of Bea for how skinny she is. It's actually insane. This is another place where I just have to laugh. To fix Sarah's relationship with her body and with food, Bea takes her to the store and they just like buy a bunch of junk food and just like eat it, because that's how that works. They're eating their junk food like literally in the grocery store. They didn't even leave. Sarah's like, I'm sorry if I said anything about your weight that offended you. And Bea goes, it didn't. I just don't like seeing you compare yourself to me. And Sarah goes, it's hard not to. It doesn't help that I'm spending the summer on the beach. I compare myself to every girl there. And then Bea whips out, why do we judge other people based on how tightly their skin clings to their bones? It's really giving I'm 13 and that's deep. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I genuinely like Colleen Hoover books. I think they are funny, silly little goofy reads. They are not that serious. Like a little light jaunt. But I think they fall short when Colleen Hoover decides to tackle a deep subject that she does not seem to be equipped to talk about. Like the eating disorder subplot. They're like sitting down in the grocery store eating powdered donuts and then like suddenly Sarah's relationship with her body is healed. Is so wildly not how that works. And what's even more frustrating is that Colleen Hoover, I'm pretty sure, was a social worker and a counselor, and so she should know better. Oh my god, in my notes it says it's only been a day and a half, apparently. Okay, I guess it's only been a day and a half since she arrived. So that evening, Samson and Bea are like bonding a little bit. He tells her that he took a gap year to go like, basically his dad owns a bunch of rental properties, and so he took a gap year to just go like live and maintain the rental properties. And so he's rich. He's like rich. He comes from a wealthy family, and he whips out this absolutely abysmal take on being wealthy. Bea goes, "What's it like being rich?" And he says, "It's probably not much different than being poor. You just have a lot more money." You know what? Actually, I'm leaving that one. I don't have time to get into it, and I don't care to. One day, Bea is hanging out on the beach, and a random dog shows up. This dog now belongs to Bea. I don't know who he belonged to beforehand, because he was clearly trained. He, like, knows how to sit and stuff, but, like, he's Bea's best friend now. Bea goes to, like, talk to Samson, or he maybe texts her. I don't actually remember. Basically, Samson is working on the roof of some local old woman's house. Her name is Marjorie, and he, like, helps out fixing things around the house for her, because she's too old to do it for herself. So he's on top of Marjorie's house. He invites Bea up, and she's like, "I don't really know Marjorie at all, but if you think it's fine, I'll come up." So she goes up onto the roof. They're bonding. Samson is pretty guarded. He says, "You are not allowed to ask me questions about myself because I will not answer them." But he tells the story about a fisherman named Rake, who died in Hurricane Ike in 2008. There was a fisherman who used to come around a lot, he says. His name was Rake. He lived on his boat and would go up and down the coast from here to South Padre. Sometimes he'd anchor his boat right out there and swim up to the beach and join random people at their cookouts. I don't remember a whole lot about him, but I remember he used to write poems on scraps of paper and give them to people. A Hurricane Ike hit in 2008. It destroyed most of the island. I was helping to clean up, and I found Rake's boat towards the end of the peninsula. It was in shreds. Basically, Rake died in the hurricane, and Samson has a necklace that's made out of a bit of Rake's boat. Marjorie comes home. She sees Bea's new dog, and she's like, "That dog needs to be called Pepperjack Cheese." And Bea's like, "Oh, Pepperjack, I love that." And she's like, No, not Pepperjack. Pepperjack Cheese. Give him a full legal Christian name. So this dog is now named Pepperjack Cheese. I unfortunately think that Marjorie is an absolute icon, and apparently all of her pets are named after different types of cheeses. She is me. We are the same. This is my future. So here is what we know about Samson. His dad owns 5 houses, and he spent his gap year managing the rental properties. He likes to do odd jobs around for the neighbors like Marjorie, but he doesn't ask them to pay him for it. He just does it for free. He spends every single meal with Sarah and her family, and he wears a necklace with a little bit of a boat made from a dead fisherman's boat. The dead fisherman's name is Rake. We just talked about it. And he says that he's going to the Air Force at the end of the summer. So they cannot have contact at the end of the summer, so they're not allowed to get into any romantic entanglement because they will never be able to speak to each other again because he's entering into the Air Force. We all on the same page? Love. Okay, perfect. That evening, Samson takes Bea swimming in the ocean. Now, I'm going to be completely honest and vulnerable here for a second. The ocean skeeves me all the way out. The vibes of swimming in the ocean are so vastly different and so much more scary than the vibes of swimming in a lake. My dad made me and my sister watch Soul Surfer when I was like 7. We actually had it on DVD. We watched it all the time. If you don't know the story of Soul Surfer, basically there's this woman named Bethany Hamilton, and she got her arm bitten off by a shark. Imagine showing your young impressionable children the movie where this poor young surfer gets her arm literally bitten off by a whole shark, and then be like, "And now we're moving to California, go surf and swim in the ocean, isn't this fun?" I was traumatized. So I am not the biggest fan of the ocean. And yes, anytime I do go into the ocean, I will wear water shoes or Crocs. Sue me, okay? Sue me. Water shoes were the best invention ever freaking created. Because the second my little foot touches something icky and nasty, it's absolutely over. It is absolutely over. Anyway, sorry, that was a big tangent. Samson and Bea are swimming together, and they're doing that like flirting thing where they ask each other questions, but like neither of them are very forthcoming, so they all have a lot of secrets, so like they're not learning anything about each other. They're like kissing and like making out a little bit, and then Bea gets stung by a jellyfish on her like upper thigh. That's my biggest fear. Jellyfish? Oh my god. Why do they exist? What do they contribute to the ecosystem? I don't want to hear it. Nothing valuable. Bea gets stung by a jellyfish. And at this point in the book, I am feeling a little scared that there might be some piss action happening. When you get stung by a jellyfish, you're supposed to put like vinegar or pee on it. And I was like, oh my god, he's gonna piss on her. He's gonna pee on her. He didn't, thank God. He sprays some vinegar on her leg. When the vinegar goes on, it really hurts. So she's like screaming and she's like, oh my God, stop, this hurts so bad. Bea's dad hears that and he runs downstairs and he sees Samson like sort of on top of her spraying the jellyfish sting with vinegar. And he's like, get off of my daughter, because he thinks Samson is assaulting her. So he beats the crap out of Samson. And then Bea's like, no, stop, like he was helping me. And he stops. Remember the memory card that Bea took out of the freaking camera that Samson was taking stalker pictures of? Somehow he got the memory card back. I don't remember, probably at the beginning and I just forgot about it. Samson gives her the memory card and he's like, look at these pictures. I scroll through every picture of me and notice that there isn't a single picture of me eating the bread. I wonder why he didn't photograph that. Instead, what the picture was of was like, she had like a hole in her dress, like there was a little tear, and he took like really zoomed in pictures of that, which I'm sorry, to me that feels weirder. Like, if he was taking, like, glamour shots of her, like, sure, weird, but, like, whatever. But it's, like, really zoomed in artsy pictures of, like, a rip in her dress. I personally would not feel flattered by that. But Bea is like, I regret reacting how I did when he tried to offer me money on the ferry that day. Samson may actually be a decent human, and the pictures on this memory card back that up. Do they, though? I will have to agree to disagree in this instance, because I just don't think so. She goes to drop the memory card off at Samson's house. And this house is very, like, clean and sterile. There's not a lot of pictures on the walls, there's like no decor, and there's no food in the pantry. Basically, Samson keeps everything he owns in a backpack so that in case someone books the rental last minute, he can just like haul ass, get out of there really fast. And that makes sense. So Bea tells Samson that her mom died, which is a big deal because she hasn't even told her dad that her mom died. She's like lying to her father. And then Samson kisses her. Weird time to kiss her. And then they're like making out. And it's like getting a little steamy. And then Bea freaks all the way out. Bea had to turn to essentially survival sex work when she was as young as like 16. The people in her town would pay her to like have sex with them. So that's very traumatic. And when Samson and Bea are kissing, she starts having like flashbacks. Samson explains to Bea about how his mom died, and then Bea explains about her negative experiences with men, and then they talk about like boundaries and consent. This is good. Basically, Samson is like, I'm not gonna like touch you or kiss you unless you explicitly ask me to. Low-key feels like the bare minimum, but okay. So Bea and Sarah debrief about their little makeout sesh over ice cream. Oh my God, I have to roll my eyes. And I love that Sarah didn't even flinch when I mentioned ice cream. Maybe I'm not as bad for her as I thought. I might not be as bubbly and as happy as she is, but knowing that she's starting to enjoy food and doesn't seem worried about her weight as she did when I arrived makes me think I might actually have something to offer in this friendship. Samson is engaging in breaking and entering behavior. Bea goes out to her balcony to watch the sunrise, and Samson is literally already there. Like, he climbs onto it, I guess. Maybe he jumps from his balcony. That would be fun. And they watch the sunrise together, and it's cute and whatever because they like each other. So Sarah and Marco and Samson and Bea go out on a double date, and while they're at this restaurant, some random man comes up to Samson and he's like, yo, Sean, buddy, what's good? Holy shit, the guy says. It is you. How are you, man? And then the dude goes, oh my God, when did you get out? What do you mean get out? Like from jail? Like from prison? Samson explains this. He's like, no, it's like when I got out of boarding school, and like he's a friend from boarding school, and like my first name is Sean and my last name is Samson, but just everyone calls me Samson, and everyone believes him, and that's not suspicious at all. Here's the vibe. Samson likes Bea, and Bea likes Samson, but they're both like deeply emotionally stunted and cannot communicate their feelings to each other. Hey, I wouldn't know a single thing about that. So finally they confess that they have feelings for each other. It'll just be like a casual summer fling. Samson goes, I just mean, if this becomes a thing, a summer thing, that's all I want it to be. I don't want to leave here in August with a relationship. Peace and love. There's no way this is going to become a casual summer fling. It's not happening. They're gonna fall madly and deeply in love. I'm calling it right now. Okay, I'm calling it right freaking now. They agree that they're gonna do their casual summer thing, and also they're not going to be honest with each other. Samson goes, I don't want to lie to you, Bea, but I also can't be honest with you. Samson is like, you are not allowed to ask me a single question. You are not allowed to know anything about my past, and if you ask anything about that, I'm gonna lie to you. Seems super chill and casual and cool. And Bea's like, for sure. But in her brain, she's like, at the rate our conversations have been going, I'll get it out of him before August. She's definitely going to ask him, and she's definitely gonna be sad when he's like, I actually don't want to talk about that. Samson and Bea go on a date. They go have a little cute little picnic out on like the peninsula. I don't know where they are. I cannot visualize this geographically. They're where Rake's boat was found during the hurricane, and they're having this cute little picnic, and they're kissing and they're fondling, and then they find literal human bones, like the bones of a dead human person. Oh my God, they're haunted for sure. That's grounds for a haunting. Turns out, guess who it is? It's Rake. This is the guy I was telling you about It's Rake. I recognize his shirt. I feel like finding a dead body is like top 5 worst things to happen on a date. Bea is like, we should report this to the police. We found a dead body. And Samson is like, no, if we report it to the police, they're just going to throw him in an unmarked grave. And he wouldn't want that. Bea is like, okay, I'm going to leave you alone to sort of emotionally deal with this. So Bea leaves. And the next day, Bea and Samson are hanging out. And she's like, listen, there's gotta be more to the story about this guy. There's no way you're telling me the whole truth. Samson is like, I will tell you on August 2nd. That's when I'll tell you about all my secrets. But before then, I will not tell you anything. Some more stuff happens, but it's like a lot more of the same, and I'm kind of over it. So I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. Samson and Bea decide to get matching tattoos. You have known each other for less than 1 month. Like a lot less, like 2 weeks. I feel fear for these people. Make better life choices, just in general. Sorry, not matching tattoos. They actually decide to pick out tattoos for each other, but like not tell the other person what they picked out.
What is this? What the is this?
If something is going on my body forever, I need to approve it before it is permanently etched into my skin. And I feel like a lot of people would feel the same way. Samson picks out a pinwheel, hence the cover. Bea picks out like a radar picture of Hurricane Ike. And again, this seems to be a traumatic time for Samson, the Hurricane Ike. I just don't know for sure that he would want that permanently inked on his body. That feels like something you should talk about first. He gets it and he's happy with it. Bea really talks to her dad and she's like, I would like to stay over at Samson's house. And he's like, no. And Bea's like, well, it's happening. Sorry, whether you like it or not. And her dad is like, does your mother let you spend nights with guys? And Bea is like, my mother didn't care where I spent the night. I want you to care. I would just also appreciate it if you trusted me. He's like, sure, you can stay over with Samson. She stays over at Samson's house. They are about to pork. Then Samson is like, I'm worried that you wouldn't be saying yes right now if you knew the whole truth about me. A rare moment of self-awareness from a COLLEEN HOOVER love interest. You know what the solution to that is just being honest. But Bea is like, I don't care. Nothing you could say to me would make me care. Let's just pork. If someone was like, damn, I don't think you'd want to have sex with me if you knew everything about me, immediately know, what are you hiding that you think is so bad that it would change the way I look at you so fundamentally? Bea does not think that way. So they boink. They fall asleep. And then the next morning, Bea and Samson wake up to some absolutely fuck shit behavior. Oh my God, there are cops in the house with guns at the foot of the bed. And they arrest Samson. They bring Bea to the police station for some questioning. And while Bea is leaving the house to get taken down to the police station for questioning, there's like a family there. There's one family picture in the entire house and it's that family. And Samson was like, oh, it's me from my childhood. But it's not. And these people from this family photo are like, who are you? How'd you get into our house? And Bea's like, your house? Girl, it's his house. Turns out it's actually not. He was breaking and entering the whole time and lying and pretending to be rich for the entire summer, for the entire time she knew him, pulling an Anna Delvey. There was no food in the pantry and he didn't ever unpack his stuff. He just kept it all in a backpack and she never questioned it. At a certain point, it is willful ignorance and you're just being dumb, unfortunately. So basically, Samson was breaking and entering into this house and lying to everybody. Then the family showed up while they were in bed porking. Someone is in here porking in my bed that I didn't know and had never met. Oh my God. Insane behavior. Actually, this book is so good. This book is actually art. Samson is being charged with 2 counts of breaking and entering, 1 count of parole violation, and 1 count of arson. And he had already served 6 months in jail for fully stealing a car. Also, guess what? Rake, the fisherman who died and then they found his body, was his dad. And he has been orphaned and homeless. Wow, COLLEEN HOOVER has one trope and she really sticks with it. The orphan teen homeless boy, dead parents. So Bea's dad obviously is pissed and he's like, I'm gonna file a restraining order against this random man who has been like duping my daughter all summer. Bea's like, no, dad, don't. And because Bea's 19, she has to like make all of her legal decisions for herself, I guess, so he can't file a restraining order on her behalf. The next day, Samson calls from jail. He calls Bea. Bea is like, I'll bail you out. Like, I'll ask my dad for money. Like, we'll get through this. And Samson is like, please don't do that. We don't know each other well enough for you to be doing that for me. Which, he's right. They've known each other for 1 month. Also, he actively did what he's being charged for. This is not like a case of like wrongful conviction. He didn't do it. He did it. He did arson. He did breaking and entering. He's going to jail. Samson is like, yeah, I'm probably going to be in here for a while on account of the fact that I was also dodging parole for my previous sentence, so like don't wait for me. Also, they don't know each other. Bea is like, no, I'm not gonna go to university. I'm just gonna like wait for you and like dedicate my life to getting you out of prison. That is fuck shit behavior. I can't believe it. You cannot wait. They've known of each other for a month. They've been like actively dating, what, maybe 2 weeks? Maybe. And you're gonna wait years? Holy. So Bea is like, okay, fine, whatever. She goes back, she finds his backpack. In the bottom of his backpack, there's a notebook that has like a list of all the places he's broken and entered into and like all the stuff he's like stolen. And he's like planning on paying it back when he makes money or gets out of jail. I don't know what his actual plan is, but Bea is like, he's planning on paying these people back. He's not actually a bad person. The sheer amount of lying that he was doing to everybody that he knows is pretty bad and kind of firmly cements him in bad person category. Bea ends up forgiving her dad for him being absent her entire life, and then he tells him about her dead mom. They have like a little family moment. She's like, I found family this summer. We're family. Bea ends up going to school. She's like buddies with Samson's lawyer named Kevin. She calls him for updates all the time because she's not on an authorized contact list for Samson, so she calls his lawyer instead. And after the trial, Kevin phones Bea. Good news and bad news. We were able to get the breaking and entering charges downgraded to trespassing. How they managed to do that, but they wouldn't budge on the arson charges because there was security footage. So he'll get 6 years, but he'll likely be out in 4, which is crazy because apparently he was facing 10 years for the arson alone. And then Bea gets really upset at the judicial system. And this is another instance in which I think that Colleen Hoover should really sort of stay in her own lane and kind of write about what she knows and can write about well. And when she starts to go into stuff that's like serious systemic issues in the last 20 pages of a book that has all in all been very unserious, it falls a little flat for me. Samson is a white man and he got a very low sentence for what he did, whereas people of color in general have longer sentences and are less likely to receive probationary sentences than white people. And innocent Black Americans are 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted than white people. 7 times. And sorry, you're getting on your high horse about this guy? This is what's hard about these Colleen Hoover books is like, the system is fucked up. This was not the place or the time to like unpack the prison industrial complex. And then Bea decides to become a lawyer to like fight for people's rights, for prisoners' rights. Which is a good thing. Prisoners' rights are, by and large, not cared about as much as I think other issues, and I think that that's bad. Like, sorry, let's talk about the fact that in California, which is generally considered to be a pretty liberal state, in this most recent election, they voted to keep prison slave labor, even though Prop 6 had no opposition. They said, hey, should we give prisoners more rights? Nobody opposes this. It would probably be a good thing. And the citizens of California said, fuck you. He said, slavery is good, actually, if you did a crime. Anyway, cut to fall 2019, which is 4 years after this book takes place, because I don't think I mentioned it in the beginning, but this book takes place in 2015. It is now fall 2019, 4-ish years later. Bea goes to pick Samson up from prison, even though they have not spoken in 4 years. And may I remind you, they knew each other for 1 month. They like, kiss, and are in love. The end. Okay, let's talk about Colleen Hoover quitting writing, because I have thoughts, actually, a lot of them. Basically, there was an article, it was a Texas Monthly article that was published in June 2024. The headline is, Colleen Hoover is a wildly successful author. Why does she stop writing? The sort of discussions on social media around her work has changed. She's found it hard to write. And then she released a statement on her Facebook after this was published, talking a little bit more in depth about that. She says, I do not mind bad reviews on my books. When this career began, it began with bad reviews, and I continued to write and have fun with it. But as the whole world can see, social media has drastically changed in the past few years. It gets bigger and louder and gets more personal, and the more exposure the person has, the more hate they receive. And my conversation in the article centered mostly around how I'm adjusting to it. Do I leave social media altogether, even though it's one of my favorite parts of this career? She's not quitting writing forever, but she is sort of taking a break for now. And I'll link the article and the Facebook post. And I watched a really good video about this, which, side note, freaking jump scare. One of my thumbnails was in that video, and I was like, holy, I'm being perceived. Whoa! Anyway, I'll link it below because it was really fascinating. I have a lot of complicated feelings on this topic because I am a person who engages publicly with Colleen Hoover's work. On one hand, the amount of popularity and like the level of being known that she has reached is immense. And I personally cannot even conceive of being known and being seen on such a large scale. On the other hand, though, when you release your work for public consumption, people have opinions and people aren't required to be kind about them. Like, I try to lead with kindness and empathy in everything that I do, which I know this is going to sound super counterintuitive because I am to my core a very hateful person, but I genuinely try to find the positives in things. And even when I'm criticizing them, it's not because I don't like this stuff, it's because I deeply love it and I engage with things that I love critically because I love them. I will say there are obviously valid things to criticize Colleen Hoover and Colleen Hoover's books about. However, the hate that she is getting is magnified by the fact that the internet in its very core and by nature is a place for extreme and polarizing opinions. It is not possible to have a neutral opinion on the internet. Dude, the internet is not real. Like, I know people who read and enjoy Colleen Hoover books in real life off of the internet. They are not reading it because it's like highbrow literature. The loudest voices are the ones on the internet because those are the people who feel so deeply that they need to share. But the vast majority of people who engage with this sort of content are neutral or positive about it. I understand that she has now achieved a level of like being perceived and being known that is atypical of an author and that would not have happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago because of social media. Anyway, critically engaging with books is my love language. I enjoy these books. That's why I talk about them. Final freaking thoughts. Let's get into it. In my opinion, Colleen Hoover thrives when she is writing silly, goofy, unserious, like off the beaten path romance. For example, Verity was crazy and I loved it. Ugly Love, which I will talk about probably soon coming up. I just didn't want to talk about more Colleen Hoover right now. I was over it. This book was crazy and I loved it. Wild ride from start to finish. Absolutely iconic. Where it gets a little dicey is when she decides to start tackling like stuff that requires more tact and nuance and depth. Her writing does not have like huge amounts of depth in it. And when you're talking about, for example, eating disorders or the prison industrial complex, or you're talking about abuse, like in It Ends With Us, those are things that need a bit of a softer hand and a bit more nuance, and I don't think that that is how she writes. Other than that, I liked it. I thought it was a wild ride from start to finish. I read it in like a day and a half. It got me out of a reading slump, and I think that that is what these books are for. They're fun, they're easy, they're light, you don't have to think about them too hard. The world needs books like that. Not every book has to be a piece of highbrow literature. Anyway, I read Ugly Love the other day, and I want to talk about it, but that will be probably later. And I also just finished the freaking Divergent series. Woof, the last book is so bad. Hey, we did not need it to be a trilogy. Duologies are valid. Just putting that out there. Anyway, as always, there is my Instagram and my Goodreads linked in the description to hang out with me between videos. Happy freaking 2025. I hope you're having a great time. Bye. Bye-bye.